We looked already at one extreme, which is perfect competition. Perfect competitors like agriculture, they are price takers. They take whatever price is offered at the market. And then you remember the continuum of perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. So let's switch over to the furthest part of the spectrum, the least efficient model, the monopoly. One player in the market, like a utility. They control the market. They're the price maker. And there's a perfect, and we're going to go to, this is in chapter 8, which goes over monopoly and monopolistic competitor. And the monopoly model, and you should read this chapter again, shows you that the marginal revenue curve, unlike the perfect competitor, where the marginal revenue curve is flat and went across, the marginal revenue curve for the monopolist slopes downward. Why is that? Because the monopolist, even though he controls the market like a utility, just can't charge whatever price he wants or she wants. Let's assume that the monopolist was a utility and is going to charge $10,000 a month per house for electricity for a regular home. People just wouldn't buy electricity. They're very clever. They'd find other ways to power their home. So the monopolist, while he or she is a price maker, does not control the market. They have to stay within parameters of what's fair, and they are regulated by the government. But let's leave that aside for a minute. So in order for monopolists to sell more product, they have to lower their price somewhat. Even though, and if you look at this curve, they're somewhat inelastic. Remember our conversation on elasticity. I could move price a lot on this y-axis, and demand doesn't move that much on the x-axis. So the monopolist has some control over the market, like a utility can charge maybe $200 a month for electricity in a heat wave like we just experienced, and they'll keep business, but they just can't charge whatever they want. They have to stay within a band. And then consumers will be relatively inelastic to price changes as long as they're within a band that's reasonable. So that's the monopolist marginal revenue curve. However, since people are willing to pay a little bit more for a utility or for something that's only available in one place, the demand curve shifts outward a bit, which means they'll pay a somewhat higher price. That would actually be the price they pay in a fair and normal market, but in this market they pay a somewhat higher price, and notice that the demand curve is set out a little bit. They'll pay a little more for electricity. So this curve has the same marginal cost curve as all our other curves as we discussed, and has the same average total cost curve. In order to derive the price, we always drive up to where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Remember and review our perfect competition argument, where that is always the most profitable area. Once that hits, costs are only going to go up and revenues are going to go down, so you're going to stop producing there. But the price actually gets set up here on the demand curve because people are willing to pay more. They're not going to bargain for electricity. They'll pay somewhat more. So the monopolist has somewhat control over the market. Now notice, if this was a perfect market, the MC curve crosses demand here, and that's where price would be if this was a fair and normal market. But since this is a monopoly and the monopolist does control the market, he can charge or she can charge a higher price. So the price is higher, and effectively we are probably paying a little higher for electricity than the actual cost, for reasons that are controlled by having redundant systems, being able to rebuild their system in the event of a superstorm. Those are the reasons why we pay more, and we're less price sensitive because, let's face it, we're also going to get electricity and we don't want to change the power grid in our home. So you would pay somewhat more and you'd pay a higher price, and the monopolist will pump out less electricity since people will be more frugal. In a perfect market, the price would be lower and output would be higher. But in a monopolist model, the price is higher and output is lower. And that's because the monopolist controls the market. Think of it like a famous singer or a famous rock band. They can probably produce music 365 days a year, 2 concerts a day, but after a while, they make more money by producing less concerts or less music and making it more exclusive, charging a higher price. Now, is that the optimum economic output? No, but since they control the market, they would rather produce less at higher prices. That's more. Or a famous restaurant where rather than open up 5 outlets, they may only keep 1 outlet open with very hard to get tables and charge very high prices. They're not producing a maximum economic output, but since they control the market, and if you want that particular restaurant, you have to go there, they'd rather have less tables and charge the higher price. That point here, that little triangle in between what the perfect market would be and what the monopolist market would be, that triangle is called X inefficiency. That would be the optimum economic output. In effect, they're producing here, and that's why the market is less efficient, higher prices, as opposed to perfect competitor, where they're producing at the most efficient output at the highest output. This is a price maker, that is a price taker. You should absolutely, now in some cases, and we see at the top of page 199, the monopolist has a cost curve that's actually higher. Costs have outstripped them. And that's where they would be losing money at that point. The cost would be higher than the price. So it is possible for monopolists to lose their profitability and start producing at higher prices and start losing money because their cost structure has got up, even if they have a monopoly, but not likely if they control their market. The monopolist has built a moat around its firm by either licenses, by the power grid that they own, by in any number of ways. And unlike perfect competitors, the monopolist controls the market. So you should absolutely read this chapter and understand the monopolist curve in the context of the text. But this gives you an idea of how a monopoly model works.